Welcome to the AmRisc Podcast. Please join us as we go beyond underwriting to learn more about the human side of insurance.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the AmRisc Podcast. This is Connor Fleury. I'm sitting here with Lindsay Mathern, and we are sitting down with Melinda Baker, Maria Bernal, and Jane Henderson. We are starting a new section of the AmRisc Podcast called My AmRisc Story. Our goal here is to get to know who's sitting in front of us and their journey and the insurance industry and here at AmRisc.
This is exciting. This is our second season of the AmRisc Podcast. We've grown a lot. We apologize for the growth you guys might have heard, but we're having fun. So we're going to let you ladies introduce yourselves. We're just going to go around the table. Why don't you tell us about your experience, your title, and how long you've been with the company?
Hello, I'm Melinda Baker, team manager for Kronos, admitted condo in Florida. Born and raised in Ohio, started in the title insurance industry when I was 19. And then I moved to Fort Worth and Dallas area in 2000, continuing that career when I met my husband. He had been relocated to the Houston area for work, all while continuing to stay in DFW. So in 2007, through a mutual friend that already worked at AmRisc, suggested that I apply. And that is how I got into the commercial insurance business.
Awesome. Sounds like a really exciting career. And I'm a little biased because you're my team manager. And yeah, you're super fun to work with. I love working with you.
Thank you. I try to make it fun.
You do.
Hello, everyone. Maria Bernal. I am the team manager for the American Coastal Tri-County Waypoint. I have been with the company. We started out in Stamford, Connecticut. Savannah Ray, part of Glencoe, and Dan Peed wanted a facultative operation. So he purchased the Savannah Ray office back in 2008. I've been on various teams that I would say the last 10 years has probably been with American Coastal. Born and raised in New York. Been doing this for many years. I actually started in reinsurance, and I pretty much have done everything in reinsurance before landing here at AmRisc.
Hi, I'm Jane Henderson, and I'm located in the Morehead City, North Carolina office. I've been with AmRisc for this July will be 23 years, and I am the team manager for Waypoint admitted non-Tri-County. I was a stay-at-home mom, and my kids were getting ready to go into middle school, and I had volunteered and done the PTO president thing forever, and I was ready to go back into the workforce, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had a good friend of mine that said, "Oh, I've got a good friend, and she is always looking for people, and she's in the insurance industry." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so the next thing I know, I've got an interview, and I go in to meet with this lady, and it ends up being Diane Gainey, who was a division president in the Morehead City office.
Well, I mean, just hearing your brief introductions, it sounds like we have a very diverse team. And I mean, I know all of you ladies, and I love the fact that we have someone from Ohio that's a Texas transplant, and from the Carolinas, and from New York. And the different personalities make working here so much fun. And I think how everyone finds their way into insurance is always an interesting story, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone who's like, you know what I want to be when I grow up? An underwriter. Like, you don't hear that very often. So the evolution of our careers and our personal life is always something that's very interesting. And that's kind of why we're doing this podcast, is we want everyone to get to know you. You are the frontline leadership of this company, and what you do here is so important. Like, you lead us through hard markets, soft markets, give guidance, and you are mentoring the next generation of AmRisc leaders. And so we're honored to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so with that, we will go ahead and dive into the questions. It doesn't matter who wants to go first. Whoever speaks up first, that's who's going. So how did you find yourself in insurance? Did you find it a newspaper ad back in the day? Did you find it on a website, networking? What happened?
Total accident for me. I was working at a hotel, and I had a friend who was working at Christiania Reinsurance, and they needed somebody who was bilingual in Spanish to work with the Latin American accounts. And I was just so excited that I was going to have a 8 to 4 job Monday through Friday that I was like, I'll take it. And I actually remember going into the interview and the woman asked me, do you know what reinsurance is? And I was like, insurance of insurance companies, I think. That was my answer. I had no idea what it was. And Lindsay, you mentioned that people don't really go into insurance, or when I was younger, there was no certification for insurance. I mean, I remember going into the city working there and there was the College of Insurance, and I don't even know if it's still around. And that was where you went to take CE classes. And, there was no online or anything like that. So it was just the College of Insurance. And you went down there and, you had hundreds of people sitting in this lecture room doing their CE classes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So,
so much easier to do when you just sit on your laptop at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's way easier.
Yep.
Like I said, I was a stay-at-home mom, was ready to go back to work, didn't know what I wanted to do, ended up getting the job with Diane Gainey. When I first started, we were, of course, not part of AmRisc at that time. We started out as, it was a company called NXS. Then we eventually became part of CRC Insurance Services.
You ladies have been in insurance for a while. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in this industry so far? Or even at AmRisc?
Technology. I mean, there was paper files back in the day, and, you had those big accordion files, and one section was for the underwriting, another section was for notes, another one was for claims, another one was for accounting, and you literally had to go through each file. And if you're looking for a specific conversation, do you all remember that? I mean, it was just like notes after notes. And so I would say technology has been the biggest change for me.
Yeah, I remember when I first started, I was hired for the HO6 department with the condominium unit owners because we had that section with NXS and CRC Insurance Services. And we had thousands and thousands of paper files. And so every day people would go in and pull the files that they were working on. And then at the end of the day, we had to go back and refile all of those again. I mean, it was so time consuming. So I agree. Technology, it has changed a lot.
That sounds like some analog anarchy. Like, I would not be a fan.
It's a nightmare.
I still print paper, I think.
Right. I mean, for some of us, it's paper that I prefer to use, but
me too still. So.
Yeah, I like the paper.
Yeah.
I like having it so that you can write on it, make notes and all of that.
Oh, I'm definitely a no person too. Like, that's how I learn. That's how I retain information, is I have to write it down. So even being a millennial, I'm like, give me the hard copy so I can write on it, highlight everything. So, but I mean, the filing systems make it easier. At least you're not getting your steps in back and forth, having to grab a physical file and put it back, and oh my gosh, God forbid you lose a piece of paper, then oh no, what kind of information are you missing on that account?
Well, my daughter was in middle school, and she would, like, if we had so many files that needed to be filed and we couldn't get them all done during the day, I would go back to the office at night after we ate dinner and take her with me, and she would file. I mean, she loved filing. She was like, I can do it. And so she'd get in there and file. So she'd be with me. We'd be at the office until like 9:00 at night filing. So, and now she works at AmRisc. So,
yeah, I would agree with both of them, is the technology and then also just how the company's grown since 2007. So we were on one floor and now we're 3 floors. So I think the company is just,
Exploded.
Yes.
Yeah,
and it's continuing to grow.
Right.
So,
Going back on the notes thing, I would not have lasted back then.
Sure you would.
I am not good at taking notes, even to this day. Like, if you ask who trained me, Brittany Price, I'd write it down, and it looks like chicken scratch. And I never rewrote it, never did anything with it, but luckily I'm still here.
Well, good thing we have image right.
Right.
yeah, that's right.
Like I said, no one at 5 years old is like, Mommy, I want to be an underwriter when I grow up. But I feel like a lot of times there are some natural segues, and sometimes not, maybe some unexpected ways that you get into it, but you have strengths from other experiences in your life, whether it's formal education, informal education, previous employment, life circumstances where you grew up. How do you feel like that has impacted your career and allowed you to become an expert in this field?
I think for me, having 3 jobs and putting myself through college all at the same time probably helped me with the work ethic, balancing, and just And that has continued ever since. So it was a lot and taught me how to be detail oriented and just being able to balance and the challenges of juggling all of that and getting it done. So, because I feel like we do that every day today too. So,
yeah, definitely putting your nose to the grindstone and getting it done.
yes.
What about you ladies?
Yeah, similar, I guess. My parents, immigrants, came from Cuba, so they were very big on all of us having an education and working hard. And their whole thing was, you need to work very hard. So that has been drilled down on us since we were very, very young. So just
Same.
be on time, be courteous, be respectful, and just, work, work, work.
Yes, I feel like work ethic was instilled in me from like birth almost. As long as I can remember, my grandparents worked really hard. My parents worked really hard. No matter what they did, they put 100% into it. And so I just saw them on a day-to-day basis, and they always instilled in me, whatever you do it at 100+%. And so that's what I've always tried to do. And prior to insurance, I was in the banking industry, and two of my bosses were really big into customer service. And if you were not into customer service, you were not going to last there very long. And so I think that, they were both really big mentors to me. And I think that helped me a lot too.
Absolutely. This is a relationship business, and customer first attitude is integral. In college, I was a bartender, and I picked up all the people skills in the world. If I didn't have them before, I definitely had them afterward. And I feel like I can literally make friends with a brick wall if you put me in front of it long enough. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah. A little confirmation bias there. But also, my grandparents were immigrants from Cuba that were escaping communism. And that was definitely something that was drilled into me at a very young age. It doesn't matter what you do, you be the best at whatever it is. You show up early because on time is late.
Right.
And you put your whole heart and soul into something, and your job is to be better than your parents, and your job is to raise children that are better than you.
Correct.
And embrace the American dream. And coming from that background and looking at you ladies and the work ethic that you have talked about, but also show on a daily basis. There's been multiple times where I have worked more than a 40-hour week, but Melinda's been in the office before me and she was there after me. I know you ladies work not in the Houston office, but I can imagine I see your little green dots active a lot. So you were definitely leading by example, and it's interesting to see how that background has translated.
I think that background for me was probably the title insurance business, because everybody had to close loans and you didn't go home until they were all closed. So there would be 12, 14-hour days that I would end up working. So I think that's probably where that comes from as well. So
yeah, and work-life balance is so important. Yeah. It's so important, especially when you work hard, you got to play hard.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to our next question. When you're not too busy being an underwriter, what do you do in your free time? And whoever
Sleep.
wants to take it. Sleep.
I like that answer.
I loved barbecue on my big green egg. So I love fixing briskets and steaks, I think, are probably my specialties. So, and then I also love working in my garden, flower garden, not vegetable garden. So tried that and did not succeed. So, and then also I have 2 kids in sports. And so my daughter plays soccer at the elite level, and that requires probably 3 or 4 practices a week plus private training, and then games on the weekends. And sometimes we're out of town for those. And then my son plays tackle football in the fall, and then requires probably 3 days of practices for that. And then he also in the spring plays 7-on-7 football. So that's also another practice, and then does private trainings as well. So we're super busy with games and practices every day of the week. So.
Man, I feel like an underachiever right now.
Well, it sounds like we all got to come over for steaks.
Yes, you do. Yes, I've perfected that.
Sounding good.
Yeah.
That and Grandma's homemade Caesar salad. So
Ooh, say less.
Well, since I live on the coast of North Carolina, we spend a lot of our time boating, fishing. My husband loves to fish. My son does too. I'm not so much. I like to go on the boat ride, but not fishing. Hanging out at the pool, going to the beach, and hanging with friends and family.
Melinda said, with kids and having all those sports and everything, we're past that now. Our kids are empty nesters now. So we have actually taken up pickleball, and we play pickleball a couple times a week. So that's what we're doing now on our free time.
It sounds so
That's
fun.
up and coming, I've heard. Yeah, they're popping up everywhere.
Just hope that your partner isn't a pickleball bully like mine is.
Man, I feel like having a good hobby is like definitely like integral to having a balanced life and not burning out. Because man, it can be easy to burn out, especially if you don't have something outside of work to look forward to. It really turns out to be my husband's hobbies become my hobbies. He's from South Louisiana. He's super Cajun. So we're out hunting and fishing and boating and contending with wildlife most of the time. So I kind of adopted that and look forward to that, because before, like, my hobbies included like cycling and doing my nails and shopping. But I mean, those are just more hobbies, more shopping centric. So, but now I'm actually doing things outdoors, and honestly, I'm digging the tan I'm getting from it. So you adapt.
That's all I do is hunt, fish, golf, play hockey. And we just recently came back from Hawaii, and my wife told me, she was like, you need to not wear a shirt the whole time because I have such a bad farmer's tan from being outside all the time.
But you looked funny in Hawaii then, huh?
Oh, I stuck out like a sore thumb. It was bad.
Oh my God.
Man, that is a funny story. That kind of segues perfect to the next question. Anything with a reason goes. And like I said, we can edit out anything that, thinking back, you're like, maybe we shouldn't put that in the podcast, but I kind of want to hear your funniest stories. What do you have? Lay it on me.
I don't know if I can really tell some of the funny stories that have happened here.
We'll edit it out. It's fine.
No. But I do have one. Jane and I, we were just talking. We have really bad luck sometimes when we go out marketing. For some reason, we always market during a hurricane. We headed out in November, right? It was November.
Yeah, it was
we were
in
heading
November.
down to Florida.
Nicole was coming through at that time.
We did not listen to the news, the weather, or anything. We had no idea that there was a hurricane coming to Florida, and here we are driving up to Daytona. We were meeting with McDuff.
Yeah,
we get the alert from AmRisc that we are in the cone.
Oh,
we were like, what is going on?
Oops.
So we get to Daytona, and I guess the first clue should have been no cars on the road. I mean, there was no traffic anywhere. We pull up to the hotel, and I guess they still had damage there from Ian, and there's no cars in the parking lot. I'm like, wow. I was like, it's like quiet here. The water splashing in the back. You could see it coming up on the building. So I look at Jane. I'm like, well, are we okay to stay here? And she's like, yeah, we're fine. I'm like, I'm from New York, but we don't deal with hurricanes. So whatever Jane says, she's used to this. She lives on the coast, and I'll check in. We go back out, and I'm like, Jane, the waves are really coming hard and hitting the building. And she's like, we'll be okay. So we parked the car, and we're struggling with the wind. We're taking the suitcases out, and I turn around, and Jane's suitcase is like rolling down the hill, and she's running after it. It's pouring. We get inside. I was like, wow, I'm laughing because I don't even know what else to do at this point. I was like, I hope we're going to be okay here. And all I'm thinking about is we're going to be up on the third floor. The power is going to go out, and we've got all the suitcase. How are we going to get down? How are we going to evacuate? And the guy's coming out of the elevator. He's like, can you believe we have to evacuate tomorrow morning? I was like, no. So we ended up leaving and just heading right up to Orlando. But I mean, I would have just stayed there because they checked me in. So I'm just thinking how bad could that hurricane be?
I know the hotel attendant never even said that they were, evacuating or anything.
Those waves were coming up over that fence.
Well, yeah, when we were getting ready to get on the elevator before the guy and his wife came out, I happened to look, and there was a bar, and then of course you could see outside the pool area and the beach and tiki bar, and the waves were like coming up. I'm like, maybe this isn't a good idea.
I was like, Jane, you sure this is okay to stay here, right? She's like, it's fine.
So we called McDuff and said, we're canceling.
I know. Poor Ryan Welch was like, oh, thank goodness, because we were only going to be here because you guys were coming in, but I sent everybody home already.
Too bad you're not surfers. You could have really caught some great waves.
It was bad. Lindsay was bad.
I mean, and then maybe for the sake of capacity, y'all shouldn't market during hurricane season.
Well, I guess we need to watch the weather channel.
Right. Weather app.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was just Yeah.
That was funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, and when we say funny stories, it doesn't necessarily have to be like an AmRisc story. Like, as you're coming up and like learning, we're bound to make mistakes, and sometimes they're kind of funny mistakes. And I recently kind of was doing something a little on let's call it the wrong side. I was doing it wrong, but I figured it out after a conversation, and afterwards it was kind of funny. We all laughed about it. Everyone knew, just no one was going to say it in the meeting. And then someone was like, "Oh, hey, Lindsay." And I was like, "Oh, come on, guys. Let's not say that. Come on. Let's not call me out." But it was one of those funny things that you can make yourself human. You can normalize. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to learn. Do you guys have any stories like that where you're like, "Oh, geez, that's funny looking back, but I grew from that experience"?
I do have a story. It's not funny, but it is a story. It's an AmRisc story. Diane Gainey and I were traveling, and we were in Myrtle Beach doing a marketing trip. And back then, you did not have your own room when you traveled. You had to share a room. And so Diane and I were, in the hotel room together. It was that night we'd been out to dinner, whatever, got back, and everybody, we were getting in the bed, and she was in her bed. I was in mine. And she got a phone call, and it was Dan Peed. And I'm sure that they had been talking numerous times, but he had called to ask her if she was ready to come on board with AmRisc. And so I was with her at that time. And when she got off the phone, she was like, "That was Dan Peed." And she said, "You can't tell anybody." She was like, "But we're getting ready to join AmRisc, and it's going to be great." And it has been.
That's so awesome. That's awesome. I unfortunately haven't met Dan Peed personally, but I mean, I've exchanged a few emails, and I've heard so many stories, and I bet working under him was an amazing experience.
I've never personally worked with Dan Peed, but I know all of his kids pretty good. I played hockey against all of them, but they have some of the best work ethic I've ever seen. For him to build this company and grow his family like that, and have them always on the best behavior everywhere they go. "Yes, ma'am. No, thank you." All that. He's a pretty remarkable guy.
I mean, I feel like that harkens back to life experience preparing you for success in your career, is that example, especially at a young age. So important. And even for individuals that may not have had it previous to joining AmRisc, but we have such great leadership. You guys really are amazing, and you mentor and you guide and you teach. And I can't earnestly say that I would be where I'm at if I hadn't had the leadership that I had when I first got onboarded. And a lot of advice was given. So with that, we'll ask our final question, and then we'll turn you ladies loose. What advice do you have for anyone looking to further their career at AmRisc or in the insurance industry in a whole? And what advice would you give yourself looking back?
I would say that work hard, put 100% plus into whatever you're doing. There are so many different areas that you can work in within AmRisc. Find your niche, the area that you want to work in, and do your best. Continuing ed courses, work on getting designations. Do your best. I think as long as you're, a team player and you are willing to go above and beyond, you'll do fine and you'll succeed here.
I completely agree with Jane. Yeah. I mean, what you put in is what you're going to get out. The sky's the limit here at AmRisc. And there are so many divisions, new products coming about. I just, you can't go wrong having a career and building your career at AmRisc. So I highly recommend anybody that's looking for a good career to definitely look into AmRisc.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. Ask questions. Don't get wrapped up on, what he's doing, she's doing. Just worry about yourself.
Yeah.
Advocate for yourself.
You do you.
Yeah, do you, and don't worry about what other people are doing. Work hard and ask questions, no matter how silly you might think that question is.
Yeah, no question is a dumb question.
Right. And there's just so much to do. It's not just underwriting at AmRisc. I mean, you've got claims, you've got contract wording, accounting, corporate. There's so many different fields that you can go into here at AmRisc that, some people just don't want to do underwriting. There's so many other areas that you can go into.
Absolutely. I feel like that's some solid advice. And I know I've again, benefited from a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the example that I've seen set forth by leadership and you guys and, even peers, like when you have a good team, and I think especially at AmRisc, the culture is just so fantastic. Like everyone's a team member. If you're overwhelmed, other people jump in and help, and that kind of teamwork and that kind of example, I think, is why we're so successful.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah. I mean, it is true. I think AmRisc is a family.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you hear that from companies and you're like, oh no, why are you saying that? Is that is that code for something? But I can honestly say that everyone here is a fantastic, and I know in any situation you can call on anyone, they'd be there for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a code for the outside world not to talk about anybody because you don't know who's married to who here.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule. For our audience, thank you so much for sticking with us through our first season and continuing on this journey with us. Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody, for listening to the AmRisc podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Submit any questions you guys may have to podcast@amrisc.com, any suggestions, and be sure to get y'all some of that AmRisc podcast merch. Thanks again.